The new Insta360 X4 is out, and everyone's predictions about it were like dead wrong. It came out about 5 months earlier than we expected it. People thought that they would improve the sensor, but nope, still the same half-inch sensor that's on the X3. And no one expected this to be able to record in 8K 360, but it does. So with all my skepticism, I took the time this week to test out the Insta360 X4, challenging everything that I've seen and heard online to give you guys my honest opinion. Remember that we do these videos to help you make a more informed purchase, so if you're looking for an Insta360 X4, check out 180by2.co.za. Starting off with build quality and design. As the saying goes, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. So Insta360 kept the same shape of the X3 with the position of the two capture buttons and the screen on the front, power button and quick selection button on the right, and the left side has your USB port for charging and connection, and finally your battery that sits on top of the memory card slot. The X4 is a bit bigger than the X3 with a little bit more length and thickness, but pretty much the same width. The size differences also include the screen and the battery. So sadly, the Insta360 X3 batteries will not fit on the new X4. This does mean that you get longer battery life on the X4, so there's an advantage. The accessory box has this pouch that has 2 zips, so it's easy to keep the camera in there while it's charging. Then there's this thermal grip cover. Helps to hold the X4 when it gets really hot, particularly when shooting in 8K. Now, I've only experienced this on a very hot day. When recording in 8K, I mean, the camera does overheat quickly in like 5 minutes or something. But when it does overheat, it basically shuts down. And then when you turn it back on, it just shows you this message that lets you know that bruh, got hot. Then there's a USB-C cable and lens cloth. Then you get these standard lens guards included in the box. Thank you, Insta360. So imagine like a screen protector for these lenses. That's what lens guards are. These are made from plastic, which does have a bit of an effect on the image in scenarios like harsh sunlight. So you can get the premium lens guards, which are made from glass and don't distort the image as much as the standard lens guards. But yeah, lens guards included in the box is really good. They're not the best, but for that one careless mistake where you could have scratched the lenses, it's like a free trial nyana. So when I saw the specs of the X4, I was like, the same sensor. And then I got it, and then I was like, okay. So the screen is bigger and feels better. It's a lot more responsive. But there aren't any shooting modes or useful features that aren't available on the X3. Then I put them side by side, and immediately when I started using them, I could see that the X4 was much faster than the X3. Like I said, the screen is more responsive, but it even responds faster when pressing the record button and controlling the camera overall, really. In fact, the X4 even starts up quicker. The screen looks better with the bigger 2.5-inch Gorilla Glass screen updated from the 2.29-inch LCD screen on the X3. And you get some features such as seeing your battery percentage when you tap the battery icon, and also changing your field of view from the screen, which doesn't make a difference to the video because all of that can be done in post. But I mean, at least you can get a preview of what you're capturing. While we're there, there's another feature that I find quite unnecessary, and that would be this rotation lock. It makes sense on other cameras like the Ace Pro because you can turn the camera to switch from landscape to portrait recording. But again, on a camera that lets you decide all of that afterwards, I don't see the need for this. So, I mean, if you would like to control the X4 sideways for some reason, I guess you'd appreciate that. Now let's get into image quality. So even though the 8K factor applies to videos, we still get a boost in quality when it comes to stills. I tried saving a screenshot from a keyframe, and I noticed that the software would save the same image from the X4 at a higher resolution than what it did with the X3 image, even though they both shoot 360 images at 72 megapixels. When comparing the two, it's clear to me that the X4 gives more natural colors in this sunny scenario. The grass looks clearer, and generally texture and detail is improved as well. That's evident as we zoom in and we can see the differences on the garden hose there and the textures of the landscaping. When we zoom in drastically, of course, some noise will show up on both cameras, but the X4 doesn't pixelate as much as the X3. Granted, it's not the clearest, but the textures on the garden hose and the leaves can still be seen on the X4, while the X3 just really looks a bit too blurry to be used for anything at this point. Just for context, this is how far we're zooming into this image. Then I took this image with the camera sitting about 30 centimeters from the box with low lighting, and here we can see the same thing, but also notice how the X4 can separate colors more effectively than the X3. If we zoom in, we can see the edge of these pictures clearly on the X4, while the X3 kind of fades them into the color of the box. The detail on the wall is clearer, and we can actually read what's written on the box, whereas the X3 just looks like that smudgy brush on Photoshop. You know what I'm talking about, Moose? Yeah. Now, of course, we get a similar improvement in video quality because that is where the 8K resolution applies. But it is worth noting that as much as the X4 has the same half-inch sensor as the X3, using the same settings still gives you better quality on the X4. So, for instance, shooting at 4K still looks better on the X4, and now you can do that at 100 frames per second, which is a great thing if you want to slow down your footage. Again, detail and lighting is clearly more accurate on the X4 once we zoom in. And when we're talking about 8K, of course, there is an improvement, but it's kind of hard to say how much it is. The big advantage is that now you can export your reframed videos at a higher resolution of 4K. By this point, it's wildly obvious that the X4 offers better quality all around. But is there really a difference between 4K and 8K resolution on the X4? Well, here's a side-by-side comparison, and I don't think the difference just jumps out at you, but I can say that there is, again, a more true reflection of the colors, particularly of my jacket, because there were some brown reflections on it. Then detail and texture, and of course 8K wins on the zooming. So we still get 5.7K available, but now it's at 60 frames per second. Of course, we know more frames, smoother slow motion. With the addition of 5.7K plus, which basically is meant to look more like 8K quality, but will take up less space, giving you more recording time. Now we also have single lens mode. I won't lie, I've never used single lens mode on the X3, and by now I haven't used it on the X4 as well. But in the next video, I will be covering all the shooting modes, including single lens mode, so hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on that one. Now, as much as the improvements were evident from my PC screen, I still wasn't convinced that the X4 really hit the mark yet, because I hadn't seen footage from a VR headset such as the Quest 3. I mean, we are talking about a 360 camera, and as much as the hype is about being able to shoot now and frame later, being fully immersed in an environment that you've captured is still part of the package. And honestly, the X3 kind of fell short with virtual tours and VR headsets. So for the most part, people aren't used to seeing pictures and videos of real places in 360 with VR headsets. We tend to be a bit more impressed with the experience rather than critical about the image quality. But after the initial impression, you can notice the issues almost instantly. So the X4 definitely looks better, but I'm not quite sure if I'm personally satisfied with it yet. Now, what I'm seeing might be due to the headset, so I might need to test it out with the Vision Pro as well, just to be sure. That being said, remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on that future video where I'll compare the Meta Quest 3 with the Apple Vision Pro. Depending on what your taste in sound is like, there may be some mixed responses about the internal microphones on the X4. In my opinion, there is better wind reduction, and it also gives a clearer sound without too much boost in the bass frequencies. But in all fairness, you should be able to decide for yourself. So here's a comparison between the mics on the X3 and the X4. Okay, so this is the inbuilt microphone test. Speaking at regular volume, standing half an arm's length from the microphone. Coming back, still speaking at the same volume. Okay. So this is the inbuilt microphone test. Speaking at regular volume, standing half an arm's length from the microphone. Coming back, still speaking at the same volume. So we've covered everything from the video to the image quality, but let's also go over some of the smaller things on the X4 that have improved from the X3, and trust me, there are quite a few. For instance, now there's this function called Screen Reader, which, as it says here, will give you a voice prompt for certain commands and actions.
HDR photo. Interval. Burst.
Gesture control and voice control, which is basically like being able to tell the camera to start recording or hold a peace sign for it to take a picture. That's available on the X4. Then there's timed capture. Have you ever seen a content creator start the video by like waking up? But we can assume that they had to get up, press record, and then get back into bed and pretend like, time capture will make sure that the camera will automatically switch on and then start recording at the time that you set it at. So now we don't need to fake it. Then there's this useful trick where you can hold the capture button to cancel a recording. So if you started shooting and then realize nothing important happened, then hold the button and the camera will stop but won't save that recording. Then the user interface and the layout of all the controls and buttons is just way more comfortable. And in cases like time-lapse video, you don't need to actually open up the video from your app or desktop software to view that footage, because it can be viewed directly from the Insta360 X4 screen. Now let's talk about what I don't like about the camera, and I'm kind of struggling with this part. I genuinely don't have any points here. Thing is, the X3 kind of set the standard for me with pocket-sized 360 cameras, with the only downside being that quality didn't really match up to the other cameras in my setup. But the X4 fills that gap. Sure, there's things like overheating at 8K, but that's a practical compromise. I guess I'll revise this with a video about everything that I don't like on the X4, since I'll be deliberately trying to find out what those may be. But so far, I'll admit, the X4 is so much better than the X3 in a lot of ways. I mean, this video ended up being about what the X4 can do with the half-inch sensor that the X3 can't do. And ultimately, it does seem to be the superior product. Now, if you have an X3, I'm not saying that you should throw it away and just get an X4, but it does depend on what you use it for. So the X4 is the best option if you're looking to add more 360 content into a professional workflow. And if you're more into social media content or looking for a 360 action camera, then the X3 would still work perfectly for you. But with all that being said, I'm an X4 lover with experience, because this is a marvel. I mean, it's not perfect, I think, but 8K 360 video is a major step up, picture quality as well, more battery life, more in the box, and a lot more that can be done with the X4. So if you want one, check out 180by2.co.za. So that's it for this review video, man. And until next time, keep it real.